Hey, hey, how are you? 6 p.m., Thursday, March 31st, and all is, I don't know, bananas everywhere. Doesn't it feel like that? It does. It certainly does. Um, I'm on a silent retreat, as you can tell. As you can tell, I'm not doing a very diligent job of being quiet, but after I'm done this, I'm going to call my dad and then my little brother and then someone else, and then I'm going to be quiet for a couple days until this time next Thursday because things are feeling very intractable at this point for a lot of people. And I I want to share the best of what I know with you so you can use that to put into your intuitive body and I just touched my face. Shit. And decide for yourself what to pay attention to. I don't think I've ever looked at so many graphs and curves and numbers ever. It's just dizzying and it dulls my sensibility and I don't know what to believe. I don't. It is difficult to find the time to get perspective because everyone is just responding to this on the fly. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's definitely information overload. Definitely tough to reckon the present with the future. Is Italy slowing down? Is China cool, or are they telling the truth? Is the US just this ticking time bomb waiting to go off? All of these sincere questions that we all have in our mind, but no matter how much we ask them, no closer to an answer. I'll speak to a few things that were asked in the questions and then some things that have been in my mind. I did some media this morning and got asked questions, a lot of questions about masks here in Canada and masks in general, so I wanted to speak to that. I also wanted to talk about the latest batch of numbers that are coming out of Ontario and what that means for us who live here in Toronto, and try to put that in context with what's going on in Canada. To the US, I can't really speak to it, but I did want to mention some studies that were coming up about treatment and treatment options. So I'll get to all that, and then we'll do some meditation. And then I'm going to do some more meditation, and then meditate, and then sleep, and then meditate, because that will helps me find the space between the past that will never be recreated and the future that will never I'll never be able to know. I think we're feeling a lot of that space right now and anxiety around these things. So I don't know if you're there with me, but I suspect so. Okay, so I just wanted to start out by reframing some of this, what's going on, this what we're calling social distancing or social isolating. And my meditation teacher last night, Shinzen, who did his Dharma talk, which is, the inspirational Buddhist talk, although he wouldn't identify as a Buddhist. He does believe in the Dharma. He did his Dharma talk and he said, and I think it's something we're all feeling, like everyone's like, it's like someone just pulled the rug out from underneath us. And we had some sense that the general trajectory of our life was going to be, hopefully cool, and we could, maybe the future was a bit hazy, but we're kind of just putting pieces here and there into it, plans and trips and weddings and sadly funerals sometimes. But aside from that, we felt solid. And then now it's just like, nope, it's all been swept away. And in Tibetan Buddhism, they call this the bardo. This is the in-between space. Now, I went through something like this recently when my mom passed away. It's just been a month, and she was my favorite. So, a lot of this retreat is me just being there with sadness. But as I went into that her death, which was sudden and kind of cruel, some friends of mine who reminded me that this is what they call the bardo. This is the place where you see very clearly that nothing's been certain, that any of those bets we were putting on our future were only just our imagination. And it is at times like those, when you're at this in-between space, where you wake up. You wake up. You wake up that your mother was always going to die. And hopefully in advance of that, you said the things that you wanted to say. You wake up to the fact that the future was just an imagination. A hope that you enunciated into this window of the present, and sometimes it would return, but now we see, no, not all the time. So in this opportunity is a chance for us to grow and puzzle and see what we're made of and see who we are at deeper and deeper levels. And what I mean by that is this is what we're doing right now. We are separated from most people who gave us a sense of who we were. And so we're discovering who we actually are. Now, no one would wish this on anybody. If I could wish it, my mom would be alive. I would be just coming back from snowboarding somewhere in out west and planning all the many different adventures that we all had on our agenda. But this is where we are. And wishing it away is the only thing that won't happen. So my teacher Shinzen suggested last night that we reframe this discussion about self-isolation as seclusion, as an honorable, dedicated time for us to reflect on what we need most to grow into, the future, who we are at our most fundamental. And I'm kind of doing that this week. I'm on retreat, and so there's that flavor to it where I'm just refining what's important to me. Right now it is, I want to grieve. I want the sadness to become permanent. Now it's like volatile. It's like moves me, and that's okay. I'm not hurrying anything or not wanting it to turn into something that it's not. I'm ready for whatever's next, but that's what this is for me. I want to grieve, and I want to feel the sadness settle into something. So it's a seclusion. It's a seclusion. It's a chance for me to embrace something that would otherwise seem enforced on me is a gift. And I don't want to project that on you. And I know many of you are having difficult times, especially those of you who have loved ones who you can't see. My grandfather is in isolation, real isolation. He's in a nursing home and he's 97. He's very vulnerable and he's really isolated and very alone. So I think that we all have people like that in our lives, and we love them and we want to be close to them. I'm just saying that by looking at this as an opportunity for us to do our own seclusion, our own retreat, our own isolation is just a different way to reframe it. And it may be helpful as we look forward to whatever the next version of our future is, because right now, straight up bardo, yo. All right, so to map masks. I asked a question about masks today. Should we all be wearing them? I've heard the CDC is considering making or recommending masks to all Americans. And I'm not sure the same thing will follow in Canada. Maybe. If we're just really watching our numbers and seeing if we can flatten this without them. Because the risk is giving people a false sense of security, especially people who are infectious or feeling like they're coming down with something. And those are really the only people who I want to wear actual surgical masks when they leave and they need to do shopping or something. Aside from that, there is an untested kind of masks. There is a risk that you think that you're safer than you are, which would be like kind of like half buckling your seatbelt or whatever the right metaphor is. So I'm not sure that masks for everybody right now is the best way to go, just because I don't know which masks, and I want to be steadfast in my reliability about recommending them. So homemade ones, I can't tell. I've seen, like you, maybe some of the evidence that t-shirts work okay. They cover about 25%, and 25% is better than nothing. And it really just depends on how safe you think you are with one on. And I'm not convinced that the homemade ones yet are what we need to decrease transmission. I'm betting on social distancing to actually do its work. There was less cases today in Ontario than yesterday, less new cases. So I don't know, those numbers aren't 100% reliable, because what happened is about 4 or 5 days ago, I got word that some places were being more liberal with their testing policies. So that means at first we were testing just sick people and people who are front-facing healthcare workers. So now there is a greater number of people who are being swabbed. So the proportion of positive swabs is less. So the number of swabs we can run is a finite rate. So you inject negative swabs into the backlog and it's going to look like fewer cases. So, but it's hopeful for me. Less cases yesterday than today. That's less new cases in Ontario anyway. So I hope that still means good news. In terms of what's happening in the ER, we haven't seen the sick cases that we were waiting for. At least this is news as of this morning. I don't know what happened today. We're waiting. We think there's like 3 big kind of peaks that we're going to hit. One is the return travelers from away, like early mid-March, and the community spread there, and then the spring break people that came back from far out, from wherever they were, and possibly another batch of community spread. And then I don't know, last weekend there's like a lot of people out before Doug Ford did his announcement. So I don't want to make this too Ontario specific, but right now we aren't seeing these like massive amounts of cases that need ventilators. And New York looked like such a outlier because just the numbers of people who live there and their general health, actually, which is quite good. So there's a lot of people. The attack rate of the virus is steady and steadfast, meaning if it's somewhere around like one person infects like close to 3 people typically, which makes it pretty contagious. But the latest evidence I read in the Lancet in Infectious Disease, came out like today, was mortality rate was 0.66% overall. 0.66%. And that makes it a little more serious than the seasonal flu, and a little more contagious and a little bit more deadly, but 0.66% overall. Virtually nothing in people less than 20, surprisingly. Not even really many infections. It makes you wonder, like, did they get exposed to, like, is there a virus that those kids get that activates their T cells in a certain way? I guess my sense would probably be something like that, actually. They get like mono. It's a classic age when you get mono. It's just an Epstein-Barr virus, or it's not a coronavirus, or is their vaccine schedule help? Because it's for something about the vitality of a teenager and kid. They seem to be almost impervious to this. And then you get to the elderly, like greater than 80, and the mortality is close to 10%. And that's a lot of who we're seeing right now is people who are above 50 and older, actually, in Toronto. I think there's 84 cases in the ICU, or maybe a little bit more than that. I get so many numbers, right? Never had so many in my head. So that's so the curves are difficult to predict. I know the US is locking in for the long haul. In Canada, it all depends on the next on the week. The next week is pivotal for us. Because you can't tell if, like, the curve right now is like this. And so you can't tell if it's going to do that. If not, and it does this, then what happens, the most important thing is we get through the backlog of tests. We get through the backlog in our lab. Because it just, as far as I can tell, it seems like a finite ability for us to process these tests in a fast and efficient, rapid way. We get through those backlog of tests, and then we have the capacity, and then we can start really moving into the community, really screening people in the community, because that's where we're going to start to try to really kind of detect and find each and every case. Find a family that has it. Oh, who did you see? Oh, my son was over at so and so's house. Okay, so then we start to really try to tamp this down. And like I said before, 3 weeks of no new cases, then it's over. No new cases. So now there's more cases every day, right? Hundreds of new cases every day in Ontario and across this country, thousands, or 1,000. But once we get down to 0 new cases, then we're cool. I ended this. I was on this TVO show today with Steve Paikin, The Agenda, and I ended it kind of with like a typical plea, which I don't know, I wasn't that proud of, but I know where it came from. I said, as I said, what's your hope for this? And I said, well, once we're done making sure we're okay, it's that, we fan out. I mean, we spread our resources as widely as possible to other places. And I referenced, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Sudan, just because that's where, I worked in that area, not because they're, they are vulnerable, but there's other places than them. But what I meant by it is there's no end to this unless we help all the other places that have it. Because if we don't, until we get a vaccine or we don't get people herd immunity, which it is, we're not going for herd immunity, but if we don't get a vaccine, then it's just going to keep on coming back. So we really are invested in the health of other places in a way that I find, interesting and helpful. We're sharing data, we're sharing, maybe soon, PPE, right? Personal protective equipment. I know some of you are asking questions about the mask thing. I'll try to respond to them when I can, maybe a little bit later. Someone did ask about treatment. As far as I know right now, chloramphenicol and azithromycin, those two pills that were used in China. I looked at the paper. There's one study, I looked at it briefly. It's a non-randomized trial, which is the weakest form of evidence, which is surprising. But it's the weakest form of evidence, and it's 22 patients. And the outcome is how long they carried the virus. And I can just tell by those small numbers that it's not it's not definitive. That I don't think that we would start recommending it, except in very, very severe cases when there's nothing else you can do. It wasn't chloramphenicol, it was chloroquine and azithromycin. There was someone who asked me about, can you get those people who have infected, can you get their plasma, spin it down, and then when you spin something down, the layers form, so like red cells in the bottom, I guess, platelets, proteins, and stuff like that in the top. Can you get the immunoglobulin, which is like the inflammatory response, the specific inflammatory response, can that immunoglobulin be siphoned off of the infected person, basically, spun down and given to other people? They've done that before. I think they did some of that with SARS. So that's another possibility. Right now, it's this seclusion vibe. And just knowing that we are, the vast majority of us are going to endure an infection. And our priority is really to care for the most vulnerable people. The people you know and love and care about. Like my father, who's been alone by himself for like 3 weeks since I left, and he's needs care and help. So I know we're worried for ourselves and we're wondering about our future, and I can't speak to that, but all the work you're doing right now is just kind of buying us time in the ER and really caring for those people who are feeling very afraid and alone. And I was in an online conversation with someone today about how afraid and how alone. There's this vitriol in the US talking about prioritizing ventilators and all this crap. And I was talking to one of the producers from this TV show, and she said, I'm not even going to bring that up. That's emotional pornography. And I said, thank you so much. I don't want to talk about it, because it's a vicious and vile thing to get in a debate about. And when you have to actually make a decision like that, and that's all they're doing in Ethiopia, by the way. Since I've been going back there 10 days, that's a daily thing. I'm not saying that is, I'm not trying to make you feel better by perspective, but I'm just saying it's a terrible thing to do. And to talk about it now really makes me angry. And it diminishes the emotional toll and the people who have to make those decisions, the families and the clinicians. So, I'm not saying that it's not something that hasn't crossed our minds, but I can see why those people who are like our loved ones who are feeling vulnerable and sick are wondering if they matter, in this new world of ours. And I just want the message to be, you matter more than ever in this new world of ours. You are as the vulnerable and the elderly, you have so much more to teach us than we could learn without you. So all that we're doing now is keeping you safe. That's the priority. And anything less than that is not consonant with what I consider to be the deepest version of medicine. All right. So I think that's it. So let's just get to meditating, because I think that's what some of you want to do. And if the rest of you want to tune in on Thursday at 6 o'clock, it'll be cool. We'll have a couple more days of data from everywhere. Right now, everyone's just tripping right out. But this is the middle game. We talked about this, a week ago. We've left the first act, and this is the middle act. It's the longest one, but it's the one where we really kind of make it clear, where the situation becomes more clear. Okay, dope. We're going to move into meditation, and if you want to stick around, please do. Then I'll see you on Thursday at around 6 o'clock for the same kind of update. All right, we're going to sit for half an hour. Those of you who want to do that, please find a comfortable and alert repose. Can't see the timer, so you have to trust me. We'll start and end with a bell. That's good. Wherever you are, just settle into your posture. And what I mean by that, if you're sitting, that kind of polarity between being alert, spine erect, and the rest of your body, the appendicular skeleton, relaxed. If you're lying and your hands are beside you or folded on you, just the weight of them, your heels, back of your head. The alert position is good because there is just more territory typically to pay attention to. As we get supine, it gets into a kind of pre-sleep state sometimes, which I wish for you if that's what you need. But it can get, at least for me, dreamy pretty fast. And at times not fast enough. So if you're seated, let's pretend there's a helium balloon that's attached to the crown of your head, the top of your head. And just gently kind of pulling it up. Your spine just straightens, just like half a centimeter taller in your posture. And in the out-breath, settling down, the tension can drain from your forehead. Your face. And the next in-breath, your kind of helium balloon does a little bit more work and pulls your top of your head, the crown, just up a millimeter, and your shoulders on the out-breath fall. And now you are that helium balloon. Every time you take a breath, you stretch to the comfortable limit. Feel the tension. Not just in your chest, but as if it kind of inflated or expanded your whole body. And the out breath, the release, relax, the collapsing, effortlessness. This is all you really need to do, especially if you wake up in the morning and lying in bed. Ten of these. Ten at lunch. Some before you go to bed. And these are good, the breath, it's not for everybody. So, if it's not for you, you can put your awareness somewhere that's more comfortable for you. The cushion or sounds, it's all pretty much the same. You're really just drawing your attention again and again to the now, 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 now. Your mind, of course, is like, well, what about then? You can just say kind of with your attitude, oh, we'll get there. Don't worry. But that's all it does. When will the curves peak? When will the thing stop? Then. This breath of ours. Now. That's good. Stay with this for a couple more minutes. This thing you're a part of now, this breathing that if you've decided to follow along, you're trying to track the sense of it, the expansion, contraction. This thing we're a part of is the same thing that all living things have been a part of since the beginning. Whether it's a cellular level, a single cell, or blue whale. This thing's been churning through us, moving through us in this way. And by bringing our awareness to it, we get to feel part of it sometimes. And there's one act of trust or faith. And that is, this thing is wise. And it's given us what we need to know what to do in now. In the future, it's too much of a puzzle. In the past, well, can't change that. But as we sit and do our work, like we're doing now, feeling held by this breath that is I don't know, eternal the right word, or certainly old. That somehow caught us. As we do that work, this is the act of faith. As we do this work, as crazy making and difficult as it is sometimes to sit and do it, somehow we know just what to do next. And we don't even know what the next thing is. That's good. That breathing, the breathing. The breath that moves through you and me and oceans and trees likes beauty. A lot. Complexity. And it's caught us and moving us. And it seems to travel, at least in part, in acts of love. And tenderness. I know none of us is feeling much of that right now. Our minds are tangling with this then. Fear, hide. But this breath, that one breath that first breathed sometime, a long time ago, has different plans, I presume. And as we get closer to it, to feeling held by it, breathed by it, then these little acts of love come into that space that you didn't even know where they came from. Kindnesses or tenderness, maybe even to people you don't even know. And that is the slippery stuff. That's what sees this thing smooth its way into the future. And by that, I guess I mean a more beautiful present. So in that spirit of beautiful presence, two things. First, thanks for sharing yours with me. And second, in these last few minutes, let's give one to someone else. Do people have addresses still that you know? Let's imagine writing a letter, maybe once we're done. It doesn't have to be today if you don't have the time, but let's write a letter to someone. And tell them how much they mean to us. I'm tempted to say, as I imagine mine, to leave it unsigned and without a return address, so it's like a mystery. Just like a love note from the universe. So for these last couple minutes, just imagine if you're going to do that, who that person would be and what you might say. It's not Facebook Messenger, it's not an email. It's you sitting down with a pen and paper. And if the mail stops running, you'll send it later. Coolio. Man, these old knees. Shit. Oh, fuck. All right, cool. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Nice meditating with y'all. And if you want to tune in on Thursday, that'd be cool. I'll do my best to be on point with giving you the goods about what's going on in the ER and trying to make it through this crazy situation when there's so many so many numbers and graphs and fear, and more than ever before, those are the news articles that people are reading. So those are the ones that are getting a lot of action. There you go. That's don't look what you don't want to hit, but things are looking all right in the ER right now, and I will let you know if that changes. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.